Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have 3 disturbing true stories sent in by viewers just like you. These happened in isolated woods and old mansions, places where you think you're safe. If you have your own story, email me. Let's begin. This first story comes from a guy named Ethan in Massachusetts. He sent it in last month and said it still keeps him up at night. Ethan Carter pulled his black Jeep Wrangler up the long dirt road at exactly 11:17 p.m. Rain hammered the windshield so hard he could barely see. He was 30 miles north of Boston, deep in the woods, heading to Blackthorn Manor, the old Victorian estate his family had abandoned 20 years ago. His father's lawyer had called 2 weeks earlier. "The manor is yours now, Ethan. But locals still say it's cursed." Ethan laughed it off. He was a software engineer. He dealt in code and logic, not ghost stories. The iron gate creaked open on its own when he pushed it. Old Mr. Harlan, the groundskeeper, stood there holding a lantern, his face pale. "You came," he whispered. "I don't stay here alone anymore. Sometimes, the walls talk." Ethan ignored him and stepped inside. The grand foyer smelled of damp stone, faded roses, and something rotten underneath. Portraits of his stern ancestors lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow him up the creaky staircase. He went straight to the master bedroom on the second floor, the same room where his grandfather had died screaming in 2004. He dropped his bag, killed the lights, and fell asleep fast. At 3:03 a.m. the whispering started. It wasn't wind. It wasn't his imagination. A woman's soft voice came from inside the walls, right next to his ear. "Ethan, you're home now, my revenge is finally complete." He shot upright, heart pounding. "Who's there?" Complete silence. He turned on every light, checked under the bed, inside the wardrobe, behind the curtains. Nothing. The only sound was the grandfather clock downstairs, tick-tock, tick-tock, like a slow heartbeat. The next morning over coffee he tried to laugh it off. "Old houses settle, Mr. Harlan." But the old man just shook his head and muttered, "Her name was Eliza." Ethan spent the day exploring. In the dusty library he found a hidden leather journal from 1878 written by his great-great-grandfather, Colonel Victor Blackthorn. The first entry made his stomach drop. "Today I murdered the servant girl Eliza. She saw my occult ritual. I buried her under the basement floor and kept her silver locket. Before she died she cursed me and every male heir. I will return for each generation, and I will drink your blood as you drank mine." Ethan took photos and texted them to his friend Rachel, a paranormal investigator in Salem. "Just for laughs," he wrote. Rachel replied immediately, "This isn't funny. That manor has 7 male deaths since 1878. All at 3 a.m. I'm driving up tomorrow." That night the whispers came back louder. "Give back what you stole, or I will take your life." At 2:47 a.m. he heard bare feet walking slowly down the hallway. He grabbed his phone and started recording. The hallway looked empty on the screen, but the footsteps kept coming, closer, closer, then stopped right outside his door. The brass handle turned slowly. Click. The door stayed locked, but the handle kept turning, turning. He didn't sleep again. Rachel arrived the next afternoon excited, cameras and EVP recorders in her bag. They set up motion sensors in every room and sprinkled salt at the doorways, just in case. That evening while reading the journal together, the lights flickered and every bulb exploded. Total darkness. Rachel's recorder suddenly played a woman's clear voice, "Rachel, you carry his blood too." At midnight the knives flew off the kitchen wall. One whistled past Ethan's ear and stuck in the cabinet. Another hovered in the air, pointed at Rachel's throat. Ethan grabbed it. The metal was ice cold. It twisted in his hand and cut his palm. Blood dripped on the floor. The moment the blood hit the tiles, all the knives dropped. They checked the footage. At 12:04 a.m. a white figure in a tattered Victorian dress glided through the foyer, stopped, twisted her head 180 degrees, and stared into the camera with empty black sockets. The timestamp froze for 3 full seconds. Ethan said, "We need to leave right now." Rachel refused. "Not without proof. Tomorrow we go to the basement." The next day they pried open the basement door. The stairs were slick with moss. The air smelled like wet earth and blood. Under a loose flagstone they found a small female skeleton with the silver locket still around the neck bones. Inside was a faded photo of a beautiful 19-year-old girl named Eliza, smiling. That night the power died completely. Candles blew out by themselves. They heard childish laughter that twisted into a woman's insane scream. Footsteps charged up the stairs. They barricaded themselves in the master bedroom. Something clawed the door from the outside, leaving deep gouges. Then the voice spoke through the walls, cold and clear. "Ethan, you are his reincarnation, you are Victor Blackthorne. I have waited 150 years." The temperature dropped so fast frost formed on the inside of the windows. The portraits in the hallway started bleeding from the eyes. The next morning they found an old priest's diary in the attic. It said the only way to break the curse was to return the locket to the grave and burn the journal, but the spirit would fight to the death. They decided to end it that night. But the house fought back. Doors slammed and locked. Windows wouldn't break. The stairs changed, trapping them. Every mirror showed Eliza's rotting face instead of their reflection. At 2:50 a.m. books flew off the shelves in the library, smashing into Rachel. Ethan felt icy fingers wrap around his throat from behind. He couldn't breathe. Rachel screamed, "We're trying to free you." The grip loosened for a second. A whisper brushed his ear, "Too late, you already woke me." They dragged themselves to the basement. The floor was now covered in fresh blood spelling out the words, "You belong to me." Rachel placed the locket on the skeleton. Ethan poured lighter fluid on the journal and struck a match. The flames rose, then turned black. Eliza appeared fully, pale, beautiful, eyes glowing red, hair writhing like snakes. She floated toward Ethan and sank her hands into his chest, squeezing his heart. Pain exploded through his body. Rachel threw the burning pages at her. Eliza screamed in agony. The house shook violently. Plaster rained from the ceiling. Ethan, barely conscious, slammed the locket onto the bones and whispered the priest's words, "I return what was stolen. Rest now, Eliza. The debt is paid." A blinding white light filled the room. Eliza's scream rose higher, then everything went silent. The power came back on. The house felt empty. Ethan and Rachel stumbled outside at dawn, covered in dust and blood. 2 weeks later he sold the manor to a demolition company. They never spoke about that night again. But sometimes, late at night in his Boston apartment, Ethan still hears soft whispering from inside the walls. "I'm not finished with you yet." And on the darkest nights, when the clock hits 3:03 a.m., he wakes up to fresh scratches on his bedroom door, from the inside. What would you have done if the walls started whispering your name? Let me know in the comments. Which part scared you the most? Let me know in the comments. If you want more true horror stories like this, hit like and subscribe. Stay safe, and never ignore the whispers in the walls. See you in the next one.